so for me, sometimes when we buy deals, I like to go kick the bricks and mortar of every property that we own. People are like, "Are you really do that? Like, do you have the time?" I enjoy doing it. I think it's a good thing for our investors. Where Ben Reinberg is actually going to go see the property we're investing in. It doesn't matter who he is or how busy he is. And so what I do is I prep for that seller. We are a huge medical office owner around the country, one of the leaders. And I was in Savannah, Georgia, and it was during COVID. And I was buying a deal from a cardiology group, and the lead doctor is into wine like I am. So I did some homework on him. I found out what kind of wine he likes. I'm staying at a hotel that actually has a wine cellar. It sells wine. I buy him like a $250 bottle of wine that I knew he would love. I walk in. First thing I do, I give it to him. Breaks ice, everything. First of all, it was great for due diligence. I learned everything about the property, all the nuances, how we're going to add value. And then Cam and Brandon, what was interesting is he becomes an investor. Happens a lot on deals. These doctors end up saying, what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, this is what we do. We buy medical properties. We have investors like yourself, and we buy them from folks like yourself as well, really. Then all of a sudden, one guy becomes 20.
Yeah.
Do your homework.
Can you go into a little bit? I mean, there's a million places I want to take this, but can we just talk about medical office for a minute? Like, I've never interviewed somebody who does medical office investing. So what is that like? How do you find those deals? Like, why would they sell them? Who's selling? Like, give me the lay down.
Everyone knows me as saying I believe it's the human body is never going out of style. So it's pandemic and recession resilient type real estate. Not proof, but resilient. So during the pandemic, we collected all our rents, and we were expanding more and more into that product type. I've been investing in medical office, my company, for about 20 years now. And then 8 years ago, a friend of mine called me and said, "You really should look at veterinarian office because it's comparable to medical." So now we do that as well, which is fascinating.
There's a vet office for sale here in Key. I don't know if you saw it. But
there you go.
Yeah.
I'll take a look. So we in veterinarian, what's interesting is that it's not just dogs and cats. It's reptiles is huge. We own a horse and cattle surgery center and birthing center in Texas. And so different asset classes within the veterinarian space we own, which is fascinating. And so with medical, what I love about medical is the human body is never going out of style. And we invest in anything that you and your family would go see. And so what I talk about on social media and to people when they ask me about it is, if you think about it, is that the revenue is generated also from the real estate that these doctors are in.
Yeah.
Think about it. I need to be at that location with that equipment in order to take care of Brandon's kids. And so it's challenging for them to move. They build deep roots in the community.
Yep.
And they're providing a service to the community and a brand. And so the last thing you want to do is say, "Sorry, Brandon, I'm going to pick up and move, and you're going to have to drive another 4 miles to come see me." I don't think so.
Yeah.
So the renewal rates are in the upper 80 percentile for medical office if you
Yeah.
find the right properties and deals. Now, things can change. We had COVID, and dialysis was a big staple in my career. It's how I got started in medical office. Fascinating story. And with dialysis, because of COVID, a lot of folks have passed away. And so they had to consolidate and downsize the amount of facilities they have. That happens in life. But generally speaking, they put a tremendous amount of investment in the properties, deep roots, and they're conservative investments. So what I call them is safe, secure, profitable investment because we add value. And we have a mid-20s IRR track record in medical, which is phenomenal. And I owe that to a lot of talented people at my company, Alliance, and my resources and the people around me. And again, that's doing your homework and gaining knowledge in the space. What's hard about medical is there's so many nuances. It takes years to really understand the different niches. What makes a profitable investment? Why is this group going to be successful? How does it fit? Maybe it's tied to a hospital system. There's so many nuances I've had to learn. Now, what I love about that is it creates a high barriers to entry for people to come in to the space. So I'm an office, industrial, and retail expert. That's what I am known as. And then medical office is a large niche of ours. And so we've been doing it for years.
Do you aim, by the way, that's one thing I like about mobile home parks too, is mobile home parks are super hard to understand.
They
Like
sure
there's
are.
so many nuances to it.
Yep.
It's like, Yeah, it's taken me 5 years to get to where I am today, and I still don't know half of what there is to know about a mobile home park.
Right.
So yeah, the barrier of entry is actually a good thing. I think majority of the world looks at a problem and says, "Oh, that's hard. I'm going to avoid it."
Yes.
Where you looked at the problem and said, "That's hard. I'm going to master it."
Yeah, I have a tendency where I run into the fire.
Yeah.
You know, because when people say, "Well, it's too challenging," I'm like, "I'll figure that out."
Yeah.
Because I'm a futurist.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a lot of people say, that he's a futurist. Like he'll see things before other people.
Do you look for single tenant properties or multi-tenant properties when you're buying these medicals, or both?
We do both.
Okay.
So we'll buy, it's all net lease product. We'll buy single tenant and multi-tenant. And a little bit different underwriting on both, different ways to analyze cash flow. And what I tell people, and this is a misnomer, and sometimes I do a reel on this because I want people to learn out in the ether in the world, is that stop using the word cap rate. Yeah, understand what that really means. And what it really means is understanding what are the risks, what are the returns I'm looking at, am I putting leverage, debt on the property, how is that going to impact my cash flow? I always say look at it unlevered, your cash flow, and then figure out what you want to pay for it. Figure out what you want to pay your investors. Because the brokerage community says, well, I'm going to sell it at an 8 cap, it's a great deal. And I'll say, what does that really mean to you? And they can't explain it because no one teaches the business the right way. And the right way is understand the real estate fundamentals, vacancy rates, absorption rates, what's market rent, what's the construction. If I'm in medical, I want 5 or 6 to 1 parking ratio. That's important. You go with your families or your wife does or whoever to the doctor and she can't get a spot because people are sitting there for 2 or 3 hours for whatever procedure she's going to have done, she's going to get aggravated. She's going to be like, screw this, I'm going to the next guy. So parking is critical. And you have to be able to understand all this because it ties into your valuation of the property.
Yeah.
So when people throw around all this jargon in real estate, especially commercial real estate, find out how if they really understand what that really means.
Yeah.
And that's the education that has to be pushed, especially in commercial real estate. It's a sophisticated game. It's a lot of terms. It's a lot of knowledge you have to develop. And so I'm always constantly teaching. Say on this podcast, one of us is saying something, and there's some younger man or woman out there listening, and they pick up one thing that spurns an idea that changes the trajectory of what they're doing, their life, relationships, whatever it is. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that goes beyond being selfish. It's okay to be selfish.
Yeah.
You know, but when you're selfish and you're helping people and you're changing viewpoints and thoughts, that's an incredible thing that you're doing.
Yeah, if by being selfish you help other people, is it really being selfish? I don't know. That's a philosophy
That's
question,
right.
I guess.
We could do another show on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. What are the biggest dangers of commercial real estate investing, as you've seen?
Well, the biggest dangers I see is not having the right underwriting, inappropriate underwriting, not having enough reserves, not doing enough homework on the research, you know, the real estate fundamentals.
Yeah.
The biggest issue, too, is over-leveraging properties.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw, and we used to do this, is we would put mezz debt. Mezz debt was a big thing
Yeah, can you explain
ago.
mezz debt for those?
So mezz debt is, I would have a first mortgage, or some of you states that have deed of trust, or you call them trust deeds. You'd have a first lien position.
Yep.
And then let's say that first lien position was 65% loan to value. And between that and my purchase price, I might get another 5 or 10, 15% that was in second position.
Yep.
And they call that mezz debt. It would be more expensive. They would be behind the first mortgage or the first trust deed. And so now I have 85 or 90% leverage.
Yep.
So if I'm taking down a large office campus in St. Louis, which I've owned, and I bring in a mezz debt, and God forbid Warren Buffett has a trucking company that's a large tenant of mine in a building, and he leaves 2 floors, and all of a sudden I can't hit my debt service covenants. I can't pay my investors the return. I'm struggling to pay my mortgage. All of a sudden I have issues.
Yeah.
And so that particular situation, I was young, we were over-levered on a property. So I've learned is you want to have enough equity in your acquisitions, in your properties. And I'll tell you another thing that's so relevant in this market that people don't think about. So we're in a rising interest rate market. It's been tempered a little bit lately. But last year, especially in 23, we're seeing interest rates continue to rise. And I've seen this environment before. Well, let me give everyone out there an example. If you are buying a home, a residential real estate, you're a fix and flipper, you're commercial real estate, whatever you're buying, any asset in the world, if you have enough equity and you're in a rising interest rate market or a bad economy or whatever is going to happen in 2025, if you have enough equity and you are in a rising interest rate market, guess what? You'll be able to refinance that property. Why? Because maybe you were at 60 LTV, loan to value, to the purchase price. And in a rising interest rate market, they revalue it, and now you're at 60, let's say you're at 50 LTV. They'll still refinance it for you. And if you have enough reserves in the bank, because you're building up reserves, maybe you contributed it. So flexibility is really important in commercial real estate. I always preach flexibility. I preach have enough equity in deals. Don't over leverage. The key to commercial real estate, and I say this frequently, is the ability to hold, the ability to hold, the ability to hold. It's not about location. It's about, because what most people don't know in commercial real estate is commercial real estate cash flows are like moguls. They don't just descend in the air. Now, sometimes they do on our deals, and it's a beautiful thing. But generally speaking, if you've been in the business long enough, you know you're going to see ups and downs and dips in cash flow. So you have to be prepared for that. And so what do you need to do? You need to build reserves. You need to understand and do your homework on the acquisition. You need to surround yourself with great resources. And all these things lead to safe, secure, profitable investments. That's why people invest in Alliance. It's not just Ben Reinberg. We have 200 plus years of leadership team experience in the business. And guess what? That becomes solutionary oriented. So go back to my comment about being solutionary oriented. If you know that cash flows are going to be like moguls, you have to be solutionary oriented, especially in this environment where we had rising interest rates. In commercial real estate, here's a great stat for everyone. I've never seen in my career in 30 years. From 22 to 23, commercial real estate transactions were down 65%. I was having brokers call me and saying, so what's going on at Alliance? I don't know. We're looking for deals. It's been a challenge out there. There's a gap between the bid and the ask. And you guys are overvaluing these properties, and that's why they're not selling. And that's what happened. So the biggest challenge, these are some of the challenges I see. And a lot of it, Brandon and Cam, stem from not continuing to grow knowledge, research, homework. It's those little things that people don't do because the brokers are lazy. We're in the middle of a deal right now, okay? And broker puts together an offering memorandum, young guy. And I taught him a lot. I hope all the lessons I taught in this deal, it's going to carry through with him. And so it's in Texas, which we're a huge owner in Texas. And he forgets to include there's an insurance number that the landlord's responsible for. Totally changes the net operating income, changes the value.
Dang.
So we put it under contract, and I get on the phone. We do a kickoff call with every seller, and I'm always on it because I always explain the process and build a relationship. There's things that spin off from that call. And one of my acquisition guys didn't know about this. We don't have the lease. And I said, this is $1 million of value. We have to tell it that we're off. So I had to educate the sellers and the broker and everything. Again, the broker did not abstract the lease, review the lease while he was taking the listing, which is a no-no. And so at the end of the day, it's being methodical, doing your homework, taking the time to understand things. And that way you build these stacking experiences in your career and life. And so what I always say to people is slow down. Give yourself space. I say this to my employees and colleagues, and when they ask me for advice too, is give yourself space to think. So every day I take an hour or two just to think. What am I doing? How do I get better? What am I not doing well? What do I have to continue to learn? How did I treat this person? Let me reflect on that. And so everyone is moving at the speed of light with technology. What's great about you guys is being in Maui, it slows things down for you.
Yeah.
When I'm in California, things have slowed down compared to Chicago. Chicago moves really fast compared to California. And it's allowed me to think, and it's allowed me to reflect and learn, like, when you can slow things down, you can speed up everything, processes, deal flow, social media content. The list goes on and on. And so when I look at this young man that put together this package on this deal, if he would just slow down and realize, like, I have to abstract the lease. I have to value this properly. Whether the seller's happy or not, or I'm not going to get the listing, it doesn't serve you, and it hurts you more to not do the proper job up front.
Yeah.
And that's something I see. I teach my kids this. I teach other young men and women this, is just slow down. I know we want, with technology, everything's got to be instant. Texting and direct messages and emails. But everyone forgets the little things. We're all humans. And human nature is getting thrown out of the window in this society. And it's something that I always preach.